Hey, Emmanuel. You should see a unmute button bottom right.
Yeah. Just hit the microphone icon on the bottom right and you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey.
Hey, welcome. Thanks for joining our show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Oh, hey.
Hi, fella. You have a mute button at the bottom right if you can unmute. Oh, Shriram, can you pull her up?
Yep.
Tech support.
I'm sending you a check. I'm sending you an invoice, Paul, after this.
You can send a check.
Hi, this is
Hi,
Paula.
fella. Welcome. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Shira Murphy. How are you?
Good. How are you? I know it's early for you where you are. Thanks so much
It's
for being up.
fine.
I hope you're getting a lot of coffee this morning. Thanks
Yes,
for
I'm
being
really
here.
excited.
Oh,
Nice to hear your
thank you.
voices.
Thank you so much for doing this. It's such a pleasure. We've been looking for this for quite a while. And, I would say it's also really unique for us. We're going to get into it, but, we don't often get to have a couple on the show.
Couples. Yeah.
Oh,
It's a fun
really?
dynamic.
Well, since I assume that you're a couple, so
I
I
was
always
gonna say,
assume
don't
that you get a
always
lot of
have a
couple
couple on the
guests.
show?
We totally should. We used to have them on Valentine's Day and other special, but we should have it more often. By the way, we also have Paul Davison here with us, the co-founder and CEO of Clubhouse. Paul, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much.
Paul, I have a question for
Person on
you.
the stage.
Paul, what every time Fala Emmanuel, we're going to give it a couple of minutes for people to trickle in, and then we'll get going. But while we have Paul on, it gives me the chance to put him on the spot.
Oh, no.
Paul, obviously we're going to be talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe today. So if you could be a Marvel superhero, who would you be, and who would your arch nemesis be?
Oh, man.
We did not rehearse this, obviously.
Oh, man. I'm trying to think of something funny.
There's just several thousands of people in this room, Paul. No pressure. Live. It's all live. You're failing the Kevin Feige audition in real time.
I am failing. Well, I mean, Iron Man would be fun, but I don't think he's like a good character, So I'm trying to think.
Plus, he dies.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Plus, he dies.
Okay. Well, all right. We will let Paul work on his, MCU audition.
Now. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Arthur,
I got a back channel that said from Andrew. It said, "Always go Ant-Man since he's funny, humble, and great with kids."
And Paul Rudd does not age. Like he could be 70 years old and he would look exactly the same.
He probably is.
True.
We just never know.
He ages a lot less than Paul Davison.
There we go. Okay. Should we get going, Arti?
Yeah, let's get started. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for saying hi.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. All right, it's time to. Well, I follow Emmanuel since the first time on the show. Be prepared to be blown away by our amazing production value, starting with our awesome theme music.
Live from San Francisco and here on Clubhouse, it's The Good Time Show, bringing you today in technology. And now your hosts, Arti and Sriram.
Are you suitably impressed? Was it not impressive?
Yes, amazing.
Thank you.
You can't ask every guest every time.
I can fish. It's our show. We can fish for compliments, right? It's not exactly the Marvel flipbook animation. We'll take what you can get. But anyway, everybody, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of The Good Time Show. If you're a repeat listener, thank you so much for joining us again. And this is your first time, this is a show where Arti and me host about a couple of times a night. We usually do it late night Pacific. And we've had guests from the world of technology. You might remember episodes with people like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. We've had people from the world of sports like Naomi Osaka and Tony Hawk. We had people from the world of music, but we also had people from the world of entertainment. And we are really, really excited for the show we have today. But before that, as always, thank you so much for all the thoughts and comments. There was so much excitement about today's shows, people sending in questions. We really appreciate that. But keep them coming during the show. Use the back channel at the bottom right of the app, or just send us a tweet or send a smoke signal. Whatever works for you, send us your thoughts and questions, because we love hearing from you. But today's a first, because I think this is the first time we've had a superhero on the show. With that, Aarti, who are we talking to today?
Yeah, today I'm really excited for today's guest. As Sriram said, we don't often get to talk to or host other couples on the show. And this one is a bit special because they both are so unique and so accomplished in their own ways. And so to go first, we have Fala Chen here. Fala is an actor. Most recently, she starred in the Marvel Cinematic Universe superhero film Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings that released earlier this year, which was amazing. She is also known for her prolific roles in television drama series in Hong Kong, including Steps, No Regrets, Triumph in the Skies 2, and Lives of a Mission. Fala was born in China. She immigrated to the US when she was 14. She has a business degree from Emory University, and then she decided to deepen her acting skills and attended the Juilliard Film School, getting a 4-year MFA. So just, incredible kind of career path and background. And we're going to talk all about it. Fala, we're so excited to have you here on the show. Welcome.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm really excited to be here today, and really excited to actually. I think this is the first time I'm doing an interview with my husband together.
Yeah.
So really looking forward to chatting with everyone here
That's
today.
great. That's
It's
awesome.
going to be great. We'll ask him all the tough questions.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Emmanuel's here too. Emmanuel is the founder and co-CEO of Bubble. He's one of our own. Shriram and I are computer nerds for the longest time.
Wait,
That's how
can't we be
met.
famous movie stars
No.
globally?
Too
known
late,
over?
Shriram. We're past all that.
No. He
Oh,
can't
boy.
act.
Oh, well.
I mean, I rehearsed with him. We know.
Oh, this is going to be one of those things. This is going to be great.
Bubble is a no-code web development platform. He, along with his co-founder, spent 7 years bootstrapping the product before raising a seed round, and then they recently closed a $100 million Series A for it. And he has a degree in applied math. He also has an MBA from Harvard Business School. Fala and Emmanuel both got married in 2019. They recently, earlier this year, welcomed a baby girl. Congrats, you both. And Emmanuel,
Congratulations.
welcome to our show tonight. We're so thrilled to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Cool. Okay, all right, let's get started. I think there was so much to cover because both of your backgrounds are so different, so unique. Fala, I think for you, we wanted to start with just your story and your background. You've had a very interesting arc, going from business degree to you have like beauty pageant, beauty contest that you've won. You've gone to Hong Kong and you've had these like incredible TV shows. You won a lot of awards, came back, got an MFA. You're in Hollywood. You're doing all these movies. What is the story behind your arc, going from like where you started to where you are right now?
I mean, time really flies. It doesn't feel like I still feel like I was just out of Emory College, a few years ago, but then all these things happened. None of it is really planned for me. It just feels like I kind of just like followed all the opportunity that was presented to me, including, starting off like with a pageant when I was young and in college looking for scholarship, and before you know it, now I'm married with a beautiful young girl, a baby girl. She's only 8 months old right now. But yeah, like I don't know. I think I really am not a long-term planner.
Mhm.
But I think I just like always like to try new things, and I love traveling. So I was really interested in working entertainment, and especially acting or just performing on stage in general in my life. But I never
Mhm.
really had the opportunity to be properly trained or anything. But when the opportunity came, I just kind of like jumped on it. So yeah, and here I am.
I was doing a bunch of research and I was looking at a lot of your YouTube interviews. And, for me, I think for a lot of us here in the US audience listening to this, we probably saw you for the first time, on the big screen in Shang-Chi. But if you look at like any YouTube video of you in it, you have this huge fan base who have followed you for years. Starting with all the TV you did in Hong Kong. So talk to us about that. How was the transition from working in television on the other side of the world and then actually coming here? Like, what was that earlier part of your career like, and how was that transition like?
Well, yeah, that's a great question because I always think about the years I worked in Hong Kong because I really literally was just out of college and did not know anything at all. It was like my first job. I've never worked professionally in any field before that, and I was just kind of thrown onto like a live television set. First, like I actually did live entertainment shows daily for about a year, and that was kind of my internship, my training at the network.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then I had to learn Cantonese, which is a whole different dialect of Chinese. And then when my Cantonese was good enough, then I started to do a little bit acting, and then that's where my acting career took off. But yeah, it was just really trying to adapt and trying to figure out what acting was about, and really fell in love with acting immediately, like on the first day on set. And I just kind of really went for it and used my best instincts, I guess, and learning from other actors and directors on set. And then I worked, for about a year or two in supporting roles before they offered me a leading role that was really quick. So I had to adapt really quickly because the working hours was extremely, extremely long in Hong
Mm-hmm.
Kong.
Mhm.
There are, parts of the world, I think there are many countries where, they have very different ways of working, and Hong
Yep.
Kong is a very special one. They're super efficient. It's all about efficiency. So I would have three crews, like three sets of directors and cameramen and everyone working 8-hour shifts, and then one set of actors. So we would basically not sleep at all, and and it was fine because I was in my 20s. I was really excited about the work, and I love acting. So you just kind of squeeze like 2 hours here and there, and in the trailer and just sleep. Sometimes you don't have a trailer even. You can just like find a corner on the set and find a couch and crash for 2 hours. But that was like really exciting, and it was such a fast-paced environment where I learned a lot. So even though like I've only worked about 8 or 9 years in Hong Kong, I think I have like more screen time than
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the actors who probably worked for decades in Hollywood, because I was just on set 24/7. Um, yeah,
Yeah, this is something actually,
yeah,
so Arti and I have some friends who, work in Bollywood, the Indian movie
yeah,
industry.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And, and sometimes some of them cross over and act in Hollywood. And the first thing they talk about is in Bollywood, the schedules, kind of
Oh
are the
yeah.
same as to what you talked about, right? You sometimes shoot
Mm-hmm.
multiple movies at the same time,
Yes. Yeah.
24/7. And then they come to Hollywood and they're like, oh, this is so much easier. And of course,
Yeah.
and this is not even the Marvel scale. Like Marvel's obviously kind of like this huge,
Yeah.
that's a huge, industrial complex in some ways. But so how was it transition, going from
Mm-hmm.
that sort of, I would say like that Asian school of working to then working over
Mm-hmm.
here?
I luckily I had, because of the schedule was so hectic, and that was in the late 2000s, and the paparazzi culture was at its best and worst in Hong Kong. So I really felt like I needed room to breathe, and I needed some space to really explore myself, my craft as an actor, and not worry too much about outputting anymore. So I kind of just like cold quit when my contract was over, and decided to go back to school. So luckily I had about 4 years of full-time school life to transition me out of that kind of work environment. And also I kind of want to learn some of the habits I accumulated as an actor. I wanted to kind of find, and I was really curious in acting in English, because I was mostly acting in Chinese. Speaking a different language, I'm sure you both understand that you somehow your brain is wired differently, and you
Oh,
you have a
yes.
whole different connection to the way you express yourself. Your body language is different, your voice is different. So I was really interested in acting in English, and really was dying to go to school. So then luckily I got into Juilliard and spent 4 years there full time without working at all. So that was kind of my transition, and I'm so glad I did that because
How was that? Because when
yeah.
I think of Juilliard, this is fascinating because I think of people who are struggling actors who have not made it, who are kind of trying to go there to have their first break. But
Yeah.
here you're obviously way ahead of most people in the industry. How was that experience for you?
Actually, I really appreciated working alongside with half of my classmates were 18-year-olds, basically. They were bachelor degrees, and half of us were masters. So I really appreciate working with like really young, much younger students, and that most of them had no professional experience, but they were just so talented and so amazing and open, and that's exactly what I needed. That kind of environment, just to be. It's a really pure. I don't know how to describe it. It's like a really um, pure environment where you just learn and be open, and it's okay to make mistakes, and yeah, and I learned a lot, not only about my craft, but myself, and about why I love acting so much, and why am I doing this, and made a bunch of best friends for life during school. And I guess also like it makes me younger. I feel like I was rejuvenated by this school. I feel like, oh, I'm like, sometimes I'm goofy, and I'm like, and my classmates all think I'm the same age with them. Sometimes we forget, and it's really, really super fun and interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really
not all of
enjoyed
us
the
can be Paul
experience.
Rudd, so we have to stay young any way we can.
Right, exactly. No, we have the Asian genes.
Nicely done. So let's get to the thing, right?
Yeah.
Talk to us about Shang-Chi. Like when I mean, everybody has their story about the call, the audition. I think you have a story here which I don't want to spoil. We obviously know that Paul Davison and the speakers in the audience is never going to get a Marvel role now. But talk to us about your moment, right? Because I think you have a really fascinating story about how you actually got into
Yeah.
the movie.
Yeah, when Shang-Chi was announced in San Diego Comic-Con, I was immediately immediately caught my attention, and I called my agent and I said, hey, they're making an all Asian cast superhero film, and we should keep our eyes on it. And a year or so passed, and we got a few phone calls from Marvel, but we never know which project they were talking about. They were just checking my availability. I never auditioned for it. I didn't know why they're checking my availability, but of course, we're always like, we're available. What do you want? But it was always like just a simple phone call. So I never really engaged them at all until one day, me and my husband were about to, like, the afternoon before we're about to board the cruise ship for our honeymoon in Argentina, and we were heading
And
to
where were you headed to?
Antarctica.
Because I think that's very cool.
Antarctica.
There you go. I mean, it's like, so you, so it's not like, let's just say that's not the the most common of tourist locations. So it's like probably one of the more interesting spots to get a call.
Yeah, because I mean, as beautiful and adventurous it was, there's no cell signal at all on that entire continent. So we were literally just about to board the ship, and there is this satellite phone that phone number that I gave to my agent and manager, and I said, well, guys, if you can't reach me for the next, 14 days, Emmanuel? Something like that.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
said, yeah, just call this number if there's an emergency. It's a phone line, it's a satellite phone line to the captain's office for family emergency or medical emergency. And I said, in case something crazy happens, but it was during Christmas time, and we're just like, oh, it's a downtime for the industry, no one's going to call us. And of course, as soon as we got on, we still have like little bit of signal left, and I got a WhatsApp message, and they said, "Hey, they want you to talk to the director of Shang-Chi right now." And I'm like, "Well, we can try and give them my number and try to have them call me." And I never got that call. So and I was like, "Well, I guess they'll find me." And then my agents tried to call the captain's office later on. They couldn't reach me and left a message. And I was gone for like 2 days. I think we went on to, the South Falkland Islands, and they just couldn't find me. And then one of a sudden, when I got like a tiny bit of Wi-Fi, and then I got a bunch of messages, and they said, where are you? They're really looking for you. Blah, blah, blah. And then, never mind, give us a call. Never mind, if you can't call us, they just offer you the part.
Wow.
Wow.
And
That's amazing.
and then I was like, is this really happening? It was the most pleasant surprise ever. Yeah,
I love
and
that. I think
Emmanuel
this
was
is
with me at the time. Yeah.
I love that. And by the way, I think this is a fun story because I think, you mentioned you reached out. I remember Simu, famously writing that tweet when
Yeah.
Shang-Chi was announced. So it's all of you have great stories. Emmanuel, I want to ask you, so you now have this moment where, Fala is obviously, incredibly world famous, but a Marvel movie is obviously, something totally different. How was that moment for you, both of you as a couple? What were you feeling then?
I mean, mostly excitement for her. Like being with an actor, it's not easy all the time, right? You have a lot of up and downs in your career that I've witnessed firsthand for the last big part of the decade, and so it's pretty exciting. Some pride, definitely, but mostly excitement for her, because when you achieve something that big, that's when you get to another level as an actor, and I think it came at a perfect moment for her.
You touched on something on, the ups and downs. I guess, for both me and Shriram, we've been in technology and tech industry for as long as we've known each other. And so we don't really know what it is like to have somebody else in our lives who's in a completely different profession. What do you mean when you say, it's not easy, or like, what do you observe as like a person who's like, a little bit outside the sphere of the acting as a profession? Like, what do you see as like, wow, this is like, oh, I can do this? Like, have you ever thought about it that way? Or are you looking at it as like, oh my God, I don't know how she does it every single day? Like, what is it like?
I think what I've been witnessing is, there are some very exciting times and some very like even glamorous moments. That's usually are the one you see in pictures, but most of the time is a lot of hard work, and also going through the uncertainty sometimes of knowing what's coming next. And I think Farah has been able to cope with that extremely well.
Yeah.
But this is still very hard, because you don't know exactly what you're going to be doing in 6 months. And I used to think I had an unstable life, because when you start a startup, you're supposed to have up and downs all the time. But my life is actually way more stable than hers, and that any other actor for that matter. And so the challenge as a couple, I think, is really to try to be the counterpart of that, those fluctuations, and make sure that everybody stays fine, whatever is going on in their life. And in our case, it went very well. I mean, in our case, like she did extremely well, and I'm really proud of her. But again, like, it's not like the last 6 years have been, like, since she went off of school, have been always easy.
Yeah, I think what he was referring to is a couple years right after I graduated from Juilliard, because at the time I've already met Emmanuel, and I really wanted to try a different market. I was really interested in working Hollywood or on Broadway, for that matter. So, but no one knows really me in America. So I had to audition just like, any newcomers. And that was really humbling for me, but also like super interesting because I look at it as a kind of an experiment, but also like just a way to test the water and to see how Hollywood see me and what they're interested in casting me in.
Mm-hmm.
So right after school, I was literally auditioning for sometimes like a one line role and sometimes a big part in a big feature. So the certainty Emmanuel was referring to are all these auditions and all the work that goes into the preparing for the auditions and then you don't hear back at all, and sometimes you get a callback, sometimes you get like multiple callbacks, and you get to the final stage of discussing with the director, and then suddenly they say, oh no, we decided to go with someone else, and that really never really happened to me before, because in
Mm-hmm.
Asia I just get cast, and I actually rarely audition for anything, and so it's a very different way of approaching work, which I appreciated, because I learned a lot about auditioning, because they don't actually teach you that much at drama school, and about really just to look at a project as a brand new thing, but work super efficiently. Sometimes they give you an audition, and like a half a day turnaround, so you have to work super efficiently and be flexible. So yeah, those are kind of like the ups and downs of finally getting a straight offer from Marvel. Sometimes I'm just like, well, I told you guys. I was telling my agents all the time, and I was like, well, sometimes we just have to be the right place at the right time. But yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, let's just say, not everybody can, get an MCU role. But I think there's an interesting point you made here. I think it's true for both the world of technology and a lot of our audiences from the tech world. And I think Emmanuel, I see you as one of us, right? We are way more glamorous than all these movie stars. Trust me, we are way more glamorous. So much cooler.
Sure.
Extremely. It's our show.
I
We
have
can say
one
whatever.
at my home. Yeah.
But I think there is often a perception that even in the tech world, right? There's the idea that what you see is either say the big fundraising news, or the big say press piece, or
Yeah.
the exit or the IPO. The people think like that's what it's about, and sometimes when you see a movie about a technology startup, like say Social Network, there'd be this little sequence, this little montage sequence where people would write something on the whiteboard and then that'd be it, right? And I like to be like, that is the actual job. Like that's what you're doing nights and nights on end,
Yeah.
like for years and years.
Yeah,
Are these
yeah.
like really crazy like montage sequence, Shriram? In like these movies where you'd be like they just like stay up all night and like tap into their computers, and then the next morning here is a demo, and it's like it's great and everyone loves it, and you're like no, but like I think I want to get to like Emmanuel's like 7 years of bootstrapping at starting
Yeah.
bubble, like
Yeah, it doesn't work like that.
sometimes you just like sometimes you like look at movies made about technology and you're like, oh my god, they really don't get how unglamorous our lives are. This is so sad.
Our lives are very glamorous. Let's keep it that way. Okay. I want to get to Emmanuel, and because I think his company and what he's doing is so amazing. But before that, I think we all want to hear about the making of Shang-Chi itself, right? And so there are a few things in here. The first one is, I would say, I think all of us realize how big a moment this was in terms of having a Asian superhero with a really amazing Asian cast. So talk to us, you have these amazing stories about, like fangirling over working with Tony or being in the same cast as Michelle. Like, how was that for you? Because you're one of them, but you also grown up watching them. Your parents have grown up watching them. How was that for you?
Yeah, it was really surreal. At the same time, it felt really like a home, like, a family, because there's kind of an unspoken synergy that really bonded us from the get-go, given the fact that the director and many of the creatives of the film and entire cast are Asians, that we felt this sense of almost like responsibility that we have to make this an awesome film, we have to give our 110%. So from the get-go, from the training of my role, the physical training, I had to train for over a month in martial arts full-time, 8 hours a day, and just give our best. And the stunt team was really amazing in giving me the best training they could possibly, or the hardest.
And you had the
yeah.
world champion of Tai Chi training you, if I remember.
Yes, and not only one, I had like many trainers and stunt coordinators and choreographers working with me daily. But yeah, and then Marvel really gathered the most talented people literally on this planet together to make this film, the best people that would fit each of their roles in front and behind the screens. So we just felt that we need to be like given our best, but also to be collaborative and to really like, I love all of them. I stay in close contact with most of the cast, and we have a group chat. We talk daily, and so it felt really like a family. And Tony Leung, being the legendary actor, even though coming from Hong Kong, also I've never had the opportunity to work with him. And so I was really, really looking forward to working with him. And he's just so kind and open and easy. And he's one of the hardest working actor I've ever met. He never brings a cell phone to set. He never leaves to go back to trailer during any scene. He just sits there and waits patiently. And he's always thinking about his role. He's always, anytime you talk to him, he's just talking about the character and the scene and the role. So yeah,
you have a great story, I think, about there was a sequence where the camera just kept rolling, and you basically had to improv. You could ask him all these questions.
Yeah, that was like definitely my fangirl moment. There was a scene, Destin Daniel Creighton, our director, asked us to improv. And he was just wanting to capture some kind of emotion of us talking and falling in love, actually. So yeah, and he was really shy. So we sat in front of the camera for like a good 30 seconds, which felt like when camera's rolling, it feels like 3 years. And I was like, he's not going to say anything, so I better start. He's really shy. And I start asking him just random questions about, what he likes, what he doesn't like about acting, what he loves about acting. And he was telling me how he always feel like he's facing a challenge. He's really shy. And it was like, what's your favorite project? And it just went on. And Destin didn't want to cut because he found it super interesting watching us improving together. So we chatted for like, I don't know, it felt like at least 15, 20 minutes. And
Fala, I think we lost you.
Yeah, I think we just lost you. Can you still hear us?
Let me check.
This is great. It's so good when we have guests in the same place. This is awesome. When we have tech issues, it's like always like game over. Now it's like awesome.
Now you can like go to the room where Fala is to like debug the situation. So
this is
that's
great. I would say, one of the things I think, amazing about Shang-Chi is, one, of course, obviously being, the first Asian superhero, but also, I think it is the first movie after sort of COVID. Well, not after COVID, but in terms of people coming back to the big screen. So, Paula, are you back?
Hello?
Yeah.
Yes. Hey, we can hear you.
Hi, sorry. I think my Wi-Fi my connection just got dropped off.
She has.
I love this. We've never had guests being able to kind of walk into each other's room and be able to troubleshoot. This is amazing.
To debug the situation. This is awesome. This is great.
That's why you get married with a tech person.
That is true. That is so true. So
that the Wi-Fi is fixed.
So, Fala, I want to ask you. So, obviously, the other interesting thing was talk with the fight sequences, which is, and obviously, you have a grand entrance, and and I imagine these things are incredibly choreographed and tough. Like, what was it like? You must obviously feel the pressure because it's really the first time we see your character. Actually, like, how was that like for you to go through?
Yeah, it was a really tough training, but it was also a great learning experience because I was actually not very experienced in action. So I had to learn everything from scratch, and I fell in love with Tai Chi. You probably think Tai Chi is something like, you see older people doing in parks, like super slow motion and, very calm and chill. But actually, the real Tai Chi, if you reach to a certain level after years of training, it's actually really powerful and super difficult because you have to make it look so easy and graceful, but at the same time full of power. So yeah, I had the crash course for a month, and like any actor, I'm just good at faking it, I guess, making it look like I'm actually great at it. But it's definitely a teamwork with I have an amazing stunt double who did a lot of the dangerous movements that I could never ever possibly do. Is I have to give her credit, and there's a whole team of people. I would think that scene. There's a scene in the beginning of the film where I fought with Tony. It feels like a few minutes long, probably a few minutes. That's
Mhm.
it. But it took us like 2 weeks to film it, and probably over 100 people involved in that just one
Wow.
particular scene to make that scene work. So every movement was designed and choreographed to the T, and we shot it over and over, and with all the special effects that Marvel's really great at, and that scene just looks so amazing, beyond
Nice.
my own
Yeah.
belief.
Is
Yeah.
being part of a Marvel production and having this hundreds of crew members is going to spoil you when you go back to a smaller, like if you ever go to a smaller set, because just the amount of resources and the scale of these things.
Yeah, I think it feels different, but at the same time, it feels the same. At the end of the day, it's a person standing in front of the screen and telling a story. So yeah, despite all these resources that they had, it really also feel like a small set to me sometimes. We joke and we hang out on set together, and it doesn't really feel like, yeah, the set is huge. The set is like over $1 million. Just the bamboo forest, and like they built it, actually built the whole set, well, partially the set, but it took the entire sound stage, and it was gigantic. But besides those things that make you feel like, wow, I'm in a huge production, but most of the things, like, it feels the same. I'm currently filming something in Paris right now. It's a much more, has no crazy CGI and nothing like that. It's very naturalistic. We film, on the streets of Paris. It's a smaller production, but I feel like it's pretty much the same to me. Yeah, at the end of the day, I just have to enjoy myself and tell a great story.
It's just amazing, and just congratulations, it's amazing, and what a moment, and obviously the first of many such things. Okay, Emmanuel, I want to go to you. Emmanuel, I have to say I feel a huge set of sort of like kinship towards you, because I think we are both married to people who are way more famous and maybe way more qualified and talented than we are. So I feel like, Emmanuel, like I feel like I know you, right? I know how you feel. But
I mean, that's the coolest thing, right?
Yes,
when
it
your
is.
wife
It
is
really
more
is.
successful than you are.
Oh, absolutely. I just like to say, like I'm like, I'm, Artie's like plus one. Like I'm the good-looking person that a Hollywood star would marry, and then they would look good on the red carpet. That's me.
Wow. Wow. I'm just really flattered to be compared to like Fala here. This is amazing.
Yeah,
So
it's one of
keep
these
going.
things which makes me look good because people think I'm complimenting Artie, but I'm actually just complimenting myself. So it's kind of like
That's what I do all the time.
You look good on the red carpet. I like it. Yeah, okay. So, but like, I have to say that you are, you are super interesting, and I want to talk about you a little bit. So, tell us a story about both yourself as an entrepreneur, but also Bubble, which is a really interesting no-code platform. So, talk to us about your story a little bit, because in our world, which matters a lot more than Hollywood, you are a celebrity.
I mean, I'll let you say that. I'm kind of an entrepreneur by accident, though, because I never planned on being an entrepreneur. In fact, believe it or not, after college, I joined the civil service in France. My dream was to work for the government. And then, things went a little bit off track, and I ended up spending a few years in China, and then moved to the US for business school. And even during business school, I spent when you do an MBA, you have a summer job. My summer job was in retail and luxury, so very far from technology until the end of school, where I kind of rediscovered an interest in building digital products. I'm saying rediscovered because as a kid, when I was like a teenager, I used to code quite a bit, and I was selling some little software that I was creating to my classmates. But I never thought I would be starting a company, even from an immigration standpoint, actually. I mean, if we have non-US citizens based in the US in the audience, they know that that's actually a major concern, right? Starting a company.
Arti and I have a long story here, so you know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, we can share notes on that. And so I never considered until I graduated from Harvard, and then I was looking for a job. Eventually, found a job at a funded startup in New York. And literally the day prior to the expiration of my job offer, and like everyone else, kind of looking at my options, I was waiting for the last day to say yes, but I was definitely saying yes. I got introduced to this guy that started working on something and just was interested in chatting. And we talked for about 3 hours at a coffee shop in New York. And after 3 hours, he was like, actually, are you sure you're going to take that job? Why don't we do this together? And I had to say yes, basically on the spot, because I had to let that other job go. And that person was Josh, and he was my co-founder. So originally, the idea was his, even though after 9 years, I consider it as much mine as his. But it was a very accidental thing. It's really, literally getting married after a first coffee date. Which I don't necessarily recommend people do that when they start a company.
Which didn't happen to us.
We got to get to that. We got to get to the stories there. Trust me.
Yeah, we took a little bit more time there. And yeah, I mean, so it was like a very non-planned thing. But I think you need to trust your instinct, especially instinct, not necessarily about ideas, because I think ideas evolve, even though ours actually has not really, like we've never really pivoted. But your instinct about people, and in my case, it was something that I saw in Josh that, after 9 years working together and 5 years, just the two of us, because that's kind of the unusual thing in our trajectory, is that we didn't hire people for the first 5 years. Sometimes I do want to throw him out of the window, but after 9 years, we're still running the business together and things are going pretty well.
So I want to talk about Bubble. And for those of you who have not checked it out, go check out bubble.io. It's a fantastic no-code platform. And I want to talk about what Bubble is. But, when you started Bubble, no-code was not a thing. And you then wound up bootstrapping it for 7 years, which is really interesting, especially given that I'm now a venture capitalist. So I'm on the other side of that. So I'm curious, just talk to us about, why no code and just that journey and just bootstrapping it for such a long period of time.
So when we started, we never framed it as, creating a new category like no code, or even like trying to solve a technical problem. The problem we're trying to solve was more a business one, and I would almost say actually a social problem that we saw that was really painful for us, in addition to being what we felt was a very big market opportunity. And the problem we were seeing back in 2012, if you remember, that was kind of the beginning of the startup bubble, no pun intended. And a lot of people wanted to start companies, and it's in particular a lot of non-technical people. And back then in 2012, in New York in particular, but pretty much everywhere in the United States, it was the war to find the technical co-founder. Back then, and still today, the technical co-founder was the most valuable thing you could have in your network. And so we saw a big opportunity here, because all these people that were looking for technical co-founders were driven, they were smart, they wanted to their hands dirty, but they just couldn't do it because they didn't have the coding skills that it takes more than a boot camp to get there. And the reason I'm saying it's a social problem is also a lot of these people just didn't have access to capital to hire an engineering team. Because the other way to do it without a technical co-founder is just to raise a seed round and start hiring a team. And we felt that it was a shame, because most of these ideas would maybe not become the next Airbnb or the next Facebook, but they definitely deserve to be tried out by people that traditionally would not have access to entrepreneurship. And so Bubble was basically our solution to this. So again, it was not like a software vision. It was more, let's create a tool so that non-technical people can build their product without writing code. We chose the web platform, so building web applications. And so that became effectively what Bubble is today, which is a web application visual builder, or no code, now called no code. But we didn't think about it in those terms initially.
Oh yeah, that was not a word which existed then. How do you think about?
I wish I had coined that term, though. It's a good one.
Oh yeah, it is. But I like your bubble reference. That's really good. I think one interesting. We have a lot of founders who listen to the show. By the way, this show is like 1 hour. We have gone through some wild topics, right? We're talking about Tony Leung and Marvel fights, and now we're talking about fundraising. This is great. We covered the whole gamut here.
The whole gamut.
Yeah. You can't be disappointed with our options. But so we have a lot of founders who listen to us and talk to us about how people should think about fundraising. I have an opinion. I talk to a lot of people about that, and often people think, as a VC, I always encourage people to raise money. I don't. I think there are times and places you should, times and places you shouldn't. You obviously had a long bootstrapping arc. How do you think founders should approach either bootstrapping or fundraising, and how should they think about this?
I think what is important is to figure out whether the incentives of your users, of your company, and your investors are well aligned or not. And if they're not, I would say be very careful. Don't fundraise too soon. So to be more practical, if you're building a marketplace, let's say a ride-sharing application, like Uber, you probably want to raise quite some money because you need to create demand on both sides, and that can be expensive. And so your users want more cars, your drivers want more users, your investors want more users and more cars. So everyone is pretty happy working together on this. For Bubble, it was a little bit more challenging because we wanted to build a product, not necessarily have many users at first, because we were in a field that no code is cool today, but we still see a lot of skepticism around the idea, in particular from engineers. The number of times I've heard, "Oh, you can't build software without code. You can't build software visually." It's in the thousands of times. And so we really wanted to bake our product before having a lot of users. And that's something that I think can be dangerous because investors usually want to start seeing, exponential curves, whether it's engagement, whether it's revenue. And if you just build, a great product and don't have many users, it's hard to show this on the chart. And so in our case, had we fundraised early on in the life of Bubble, I'm pretty sure we would not be in business today because it would have been hard to raise a subsequent round. And it's not something we certainly articulated like that when we started, but knowing what we know today and looking at, the world of very horizontal tools, I'm talking about, Webflow, which is in the no-code space, Zapier, Notion, this kind of companies, Airtable, this kind of company actually have raised money pretty late. Most of them basically bootstrap. I mean, Webflow did not bootstrap because they went to YC, but effectively they didn't raise money for 5 years after that, I think. I think the pattern here is if you're building a horizontal tool where you need the product to be very strong before getting a lot of users, fundraising, I think, is pretty dangerous.
So Fala, I want to kind of flip this because we spoke about you going to Argentina, and I asked Emmanuel about how it was. Earlier this year, Bubble raises $100 million funding round. The first round, obviously, there is a huge moment. How was it for you to see Emmanuel go through that? How was the experience like?
Yeah, for me, I've also witnessed Bubble and Emmanuel and Josh's journey and their ups and downs along the way. I met Emmanuel in 2015, where they kind of just started having a lot of users and running the business for another few years while we're together without any funding. So yeah, it was definitely a huge moment. It was a big, and I was actually doing my reshoot in LA. I remember Emmanuel was taking meetings at odd hours because, LA had a time difference, but he was really, really focused and he was taking a lot of meetings, and I could feel the pressure and feel, I was nervous for him, but at the same time, it's also really exciting that we're getting a lot of interest and taking all these meetings. And so I definitely try to be supportive, but at the same time in providing like an outsider point of view. Also, even like when they had the deck, I was like looking at the deck with Emmanuel and rehearsing with him, giving him some acting notes. Maybe not like so much of like acting, but like, speech and voice,
like
English is like neither of our, right.
That's
like,
really important.
What's the word to stress? I was like making notes for him, like maybe this is the word to stress, and maybe like, so I was his kind of like a voice and speech coach for a minute. But it was a lot of fun to help him and to witness this tremendous growth that Bubble is experiencing. But actually, I was with him, especially since the pandemic happened. He was working more at home, and just to witness like the hours, the crazy long hours he's working in front of his computer, and how hard it is, how unglamorous the work it is to start a business and to run it, and to now making into this big company. So yeah, I really feel proud of him and of Bubble as well.
I love that. I also love how symmetric and similar your answers were for
For
each other.
Yeah.
It's so touching. By the way, I will say, I do think there is one common theme between storytelling in entertainment and fundraising, which is you're in the business of telling a story. And I think the more you can do the Joseph Campbellian hero's journey and the 3-act structure, the more it really works. So I think there is actually some deep similarities between, storytelling in multiple mediums. And I think a lot of fundraising is about storytelling. So, I think actually this is actually great advice.
We definitely had fun working together on the deck.
Yep.
That's awesome. I guess, Emmanuel, just like Fala's background, yours, again, you have a really interesting career arc, right? Like you go from computer science and math degrees, then you have a business degree at Harvard, you become a strategic consultant, you work at Prada, to now where you're a startup founder, co-CEO. You mentioned this like coffee shop meeting where, the bubble as a concept came about, and 9 years later, here you are. But if that hadn't happened, what would have your career path looked like?
It's tough to tell. I mean, again, as I said, when I grew up, I wanted to work for the French government. Because I think, and I actually still think that, I think there are some countries where if you want to have an impact and do some big things, the government is a good place to be. And I think in France, it's still the case. So I guess I would have done that. It's really hard to say because it's a lot of little things that happened. For instance, making the decision to go to China first for 3 years, then making the decision to not come back to France and go to Boston for my MBA. So it's hard to say exactly what would have happened if I were not doing what I'm doing today. I mean, I think eventually this was all meant to be. What I would say that what I've learned is making long-term plans for your career is not the right way to go. I think having a vision or the kind of person you want to become, a couple of decades later is important, but making plans is very difficult and actually pointless.
Got it. Okay, that's great. I mean, I think we feel pretty similarly where it's like a lot of what we see in hindsight, you can connect the dots backwards, but not so much like forward, right? Like you just
Definitely
don't know
not, yeah.
what it's going to look like. Okay, a question for both of you. Like this is just the story that we ask, especially when we have couples on the show, which we rarely do. How did you both meet?
Tell us your origin story.
We were introduced by actually a Bubble user.
Wow.
I hope that was in the deck. I really hope that was in the fundraising deck right there. That's a great moment.
Put that in there.
Instant term sheet.
That Bubble user was, I think, user number 5 because she was in the same co-working space as we were back in 2012. So very early user.
Yeah, and then she was a friend of mine, and she just thought of us might have a lot in common. And
let's call it what it is. It was a setup.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So a common friend put you in touch, and that's kind of how you got like connected, or Bubble user put you in touch, and that's kind of how
she had actually, because I think I was really shy about meeting someone, and I was in school again with like a bunch of 18-year-olds. There's just no way I could meet someone new.
Not big on dating apps. Fala is not a dating app person.
No, I was never on dating apps. So she.
And what was your first impression of Emmanuel? And I'm going to ask Emmanuel the same question, vice versa.
Yeah, she was with us. We went to a burlesque show in East Village together, and she had to bring another girlfriend. It was like 4 of us. So she was like physically there to make sure, you know, the date goes well. So it was kind of casual, you know, we're hanging out. But Emmanuel was so talkative. He was just like only talking to me the whole time, and I was like, whoa, this guy talks a lot. That was my impression.
I mean, she's not being totally straight here. She actually found
Okay,
out-
so
no,
correct, set the record straight, Emmanuel. Come on, let's get into this.
well, she found I was too talkative. Not just talkative, too talkative.
Okay, yeah.
Right. She's not denying it on the record. So
There we go. Okay, that's the well.
What
You know,
was-
the
what
audience
was
can
your
judge.
impression?
You know, on who might be more truthful here. Okay,
Actually,
so I have a
what was your impression, Emmanuel?
yeah.
Well, I was definitely interested. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking because why would I talk if I'm not interested? I mean, I remember talking a little bit about like the transition to Juilliard, coming
Yeah.
from what she was in Hong Kong, and I've always found that extremely impressive. Like someone who's able, being humble and be like, okay, I'm going to go back to actually learn and perfect the craft, even though I'm already at a kind of a peak, not a peak, but you know, in a very good place in my career in the field. I remember coming back that night. I mean, obviously, I think chemistry was there. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today next to her. But I remember thinking, wow, that's really someone who knows what she wants and who's very humble and ready to, you know, get back to learning just to perfect what she's doing, which I think is extremely rare. I think most people would not do that. Like, in fact, I mean, not she's probably the only one at Juilliard who has that trajectory, and I did find that extremely inspiring personally.
Thank you. That's a really good, really safe, but really good answer. You know,
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, we might have to ask you the more spicy stuff after the show. Okay, I have a question for both of you before we wrap. I think, you know, one of the things we love about the show is we love getting people from different backgrounds, and what we've always found is when you have people at the top of their craft, in any industry, we always have some and a lot of, you know, in the technology startups, you know, building platforms. What do you think we can learn from
And like that straightforward. The words don't always represent what people want to say. I think it's something very, for me individually, extremely valuable. And I think as a whole, we have a lot to learn there because at the end of the day, being an actor is about connecting and showing a lot of emotions on screen or on set or on stage. And that's something that technology sometimes I think feels a little bit disconnected to, and that I think we should bring back back to technology a little bit more.
That's beautiful, actually. That's actually a fantastic answer. I love that. Okay, and so Fala, let me ask you this on the reverse. Like, you obviously seen, somebody who's been a founder, a very technical founder for many, many years. What do you think actors? And I don't think we have many actors listening to the show, but like, what do you think actors can learn from, you know, a lot of people in the audience and people like Emmanuel?
I think actors sometimes tend to like really be in a bubble where they look at the industry, like their own industry, or you know, Hollywood or Broadway. But sometimes we don't think outside the box, and being a little bit passive, just waiting for the opportunity, or just only thinking about, you know, acting work. But I think what we can learn from tech, especially tech founders, is that they really look far ahead and look at a big vision, and they really try to make it happen, even though sometimes the ideas sound, you know, so big and so far away and unreachable, but they go for it. And so I think having the big vision and really work hard daily in achieving that vision, and I think that's something we don't see every day in my industry.
I love this. I think this is something we could go on forever, but you know, I think one, thinking big, and second, being empathetic. Let me just say, I think both of you have clearly shown that you have both of those qualities and much more. This has been such an amazing hour. We've rarely had a couple on the show, and this has been such a blast. I want to thank, let me kind of wrap because we're out of time. I want to thank the thousands of people in the audience who've been riveted. People have loved this. It's probably one of the cutest, most adorable, but also inspiring, I think, episodes we've done in a while. And I think a lot of that credit goes to our amazing guests. I think if you want to check them out, go follow Fala. If you haven't seen Shang-Chi, I think it's going to be up on streaming services soon. Go check it out. Go follow her on Instagram and on social. And Emmanuel, if you're in the business of creating websites and do the Hamid Right code, go check out Bubble.io. But I just want to say, Fala, Emmanuel, both of you are amazing. You're adorable. Your hashtag couple goals. I don't know whether people say hashtag on Clubhouse, but let me just say it.
No, Shriram, please.
Okay.
No.
That's a dad joke. Okay. Well, you are goals. But I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. This was so fun.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, we had a blast, and I really wanted to ask you guys more questions about working as a couple, and I'll definitely come back.
We will do part 2.
Tune in.
Yeah.
Yes,
we need a sequel. There'll be a post-credit sequence with a teaser, right? Setting up the sequel. Okay. So we have a tradition on the show where we like to play a piece of music to play us out, which has something to do with the guest or something to do with the content of the show. I think given who we have today, I think, this is the only choice we have. Fala.